Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is David Schlotthauer here with another detailed El Nino update. As always, it's Monday, April the 24th, 2023. So let's get started and take a look with what we got as far as El Nino goes. So to start off this very detailed El Nino discussion, here's a look at our summary as of right now, and the ENSO alert system status is now calling for an El Nino watch, which got issued last Monday. The ENSO neutral conditions are currently being observed, and equatorial sea surface temperatures are near to above average across most of the Pacific Ocean. ENSO neutral conditions are expected to continue through the northern hemisphere spring, followed by a 62% chance of El Nino developing during the May through July timeframe. And we could really see why they have issued an El Nino watch already since last Monday is because the sea surface temperatures here ever since mid-February have really warmed up in the eastern Pacific here, as I have circled in black, and these sea surface temperature anomalies are running right around 1 to 3 Celsius above the long-term average. We have also seen some central base Pacific warming, including in the western Pacific, where sea surface temperatures are also running about a degree or so Celsius above the long-term average. Again, these are departures from normal, folks. These are not actual sea surface temperatures. Otherwise, the tropics would be freezing cold right now. Get it? So the Nino region sea surface temperature departures recent evaluation do indicate that the 1+2 region remains extremely warm, 2.5 Celsius above the long-term average. We're already at 0.6 Celsius above the long-term average in the Nino 3 region. So these two regions that I'm going to be boxing in or in black here are already running in their El Nino mean territory, which you need 0.5 Celsius or higher for a weak El Nino to occur. And if it's above 1 Celsius, it's strong, or it's moderate, 1.5 strong, and then usually 2 and higher is considered a very strong or super El Nino. So right now, these two basins, which are roughly from about the El Nino 3 region over here, are running above normal, and that is a sign that El Nino is strengthening and not far behind in the Nino 3.4 and 4 region. So we're going to skip all of this because it's so hard to look at when it's in a small thumbnail type textbook. So we're going to kind of skip over into the subsurface sea surface temperatures. And these are a look at the anomalies too. Below the surface of the ocean, are they above average? Are they below average? Because what goes on below the surface of the ocean usually happens at the surface. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so we can see here the orange colors that I'm going to box up here on this thumbnail. All right, ever since mid-February have trended warmer than average below the surface of the ocean. Why this is important is because when you have above average or these anomalies that are above normal, usually mean that the subsurface, so that is below the surface of the ocean, down to like say 500 feet, even 1,000 feet down below the surface, is running well above average typically. And so when you get the slackening of the trade winds, that warm water is able to mix up to the surface and develop our El Nino, right? And that's what's happening right now, is we are seeing a lot of warming already taking shape in the eastern Pacific and below the surface of the ocean. And things have really got underway here ever really since mid-February is when the whole transition took place. So let's go forward. Subsurface temperature departures in the equatorial Pacific, very substantial here, especially in the eastern Pacific, where we have 4 to 6 Celsius above average sea surface temperatures in the subsurface, right around 1 to 2 Celsius below the surface of the ocean, but more buried right around 100 meters to 150 meters down. So not very deep, but not very shallow either. But that is kind of going to get sloshed eastward with time, and that's going to help to develop our El Nino that everyone's been talking about over the last 3 months or so. Look at this. The thumbnails on your right side indicate the historical ever since mid-February. Look at this. Remember, we were looking at neutral conditions, maybe below average sea surface temperatures below the surface. Look at how this has all changed really in a hurry here, and now it is a whole different ball game. We are looking at a very likelihood that we're going to have a very intense or a very strong El Nino perhaps by late fall into winter time. So the anomalies, 850 wind anomalies, really not showing with El Nino conditions just yet. Still some easterlies there, right around 3 knots or so stronger than typical, and that's kind of the blue splotches that you see on your screen. Also, upper level winds at 200 millibars have remained somewhat above average in a way across the central and eastern equatorial Pacific. So there has not been a correlation yet, based on what I see and based on what I'm aware of, that we have not seen the atmosphere really change in response to El Nino just yet. We're looking at neutral conditions at this point, but once we get probably into late summer, we're probably going to start seeing a lot of these upper level winds here kind of blow out of the easterly direction, and surface winds or low level winds blow out of the westerly direction, or weakening or slackening of the trade winds, which will help entice El Nino to strengthen even further. So here's a look at the weekly heat content evaluation in the equatorial Pacific, and of course a huge downwelling Kelvin wave is in progress right now in the central Pacific, moving its way into the eastern Pacific. This is going to lead to more substantial warming at the equatorial Pacific from about the international dateline eastward into the Peru coast, which we have been seeing. This is correlating to slackening and another reversal in the trade winds that are currently ongoing roughly from about 100 degrees east latitude or longitude all the way over to about 160 degrees east longitude at this time, with more upward motion and enhanced thunderstorm convection being observed across the international dateline into perhaps even further east than that, all the way across the 120 degree west longitude line there. All right, so that's a look at the, let's see if we have any more on this PowerPoint. Of course, we looked at this last week, 0.4 Celsius in the 3-month mean. We are likely to see a huge increase in these numbers in the next couple of months, maybe in the next few months. We're probably going to add in some of these red boxes for sure, probably even as early as, say, July, or even as early, probably maybe, yeah, July or August. We're likely to see these red boxes really start to fill up because of what we are seeing there. But otherwise, right now, negative 0.4 is the latest contribution from January all the way through March. The 3-month mean average is still slightly below average at this time, but we are seeing the big changes right now of what I mentioned. So here's a look at the NOAA Coral Reef Watch Sea Surface Temperature Anomaly Map. This is current. This is today's map. This is not a day old by any means. This is not delayed. This is today, the current sea surface temperature anomaly. And yeah, it is definitely warming up here across the 120 to 100 degree west longitude line, including the eastern or the 80 degree west longitude. Really, really warm. I mean, 3 Celsius. Some of these kind of whiter colors here, even up in the 5 degree Celsius above average type territory. That is a big deal. That is a very strong signal to me that we are going to have a strong to maybe a super El Nino. That's kind of what I'm still thinking right now. Nothing has changed very much. So as of it stands, we're looking at a big El Nino developing. Sea surface temperatures out here are already 1.5 Celsius, even a little warmer with some of these islands that are quite far above average. And just literally the entire Pacific, which roughly, by the way, the equator is right here in the black line, and we can see the entire Pacific along the equator here is running somewhere above average, anywhere between 0.4 Celsius or greater. So there's definitely not an La Nina at all, not even coming back or anytime soon. Okay, even so, our trade winds are stronger than average briefly. That's not going to cause La Nina to develop by any means. All right, so let's take a look here at our next slide. This is the 15-day sea surface temperature anomaly change, and yeah, it is definitely warmed up out here, like quite significantly. The orange colors indicate 0.5 to 1 Celsius warmer than 15 days ago. Some of these areas have even warmed up almost 2 Celsius, even close to 2 Celsius out here in the international dateline. So this is telling me that, yeah, we're getting there. We're adding to the flavor of El Nino here, more likely. However, the good news, or good or not, depending on how you look at this, the sea surface temperatures have come down a little bit or have cooled off a little bit, but still remaining well above average for this time of the year, have lost about a half a degree or so with sea surface temperatures in the last 15 days. Now, another cool chart that I like looking at here is the sea surface temperature anomaly in the 15-day mean average, okay? Ronald Martinez has provided this in his posts on Twitter. You can follow him at California Storm Lover, I believe is where you find it at on Twitter. You can follow him there. He is doing a lot of updates on El Nino conditions because that does matter a lot for the United States viewers, including for any of you that live in Hawaii too. So, of course, this has changed a lot, okay? Back in mid-February, late February, early March, sea surface temperatures were pretty far below average in a way, 0.5, 0.4, definitely in the weaker to moderate La Nina state. And then recently, look at this, we're near average, and now we're approaching the 0.2 marker on the 15-day mean. This is the 15-day. The actual contribution, if you really want to be, if you want me to be specific, it's actually 0.49 Celsius above average right now. But we average things out because that's just what I do on my channel, right? I want to be a little conservative. We cannot always look at the exact, right? Because if we just look at that, maybe one day it's cooler, maybe the other day it's way warmer, right? So the overall long-term average in the last couple of weeks is about 1.95, or about 1.9 degree, 0.9, sorry, what am I thinking here? 0.1 Celsius, roughly. Okay, 0.1 to 0.2 Celsius. There we go. I corrected myself. You guys are probably laughing and saying, man, I love when David makes mistakes like that. Sorry, when I'm talking fast, that's what just happens, right? So now, on from our sea surface temperature anomaly graphic, let's go on to another graphic, and this is the Southern Oscillation Index. Now, to put this into simple words, there are two pressure stations that are monitored in the central, eastern, and in Indonesia, right? There's a pressure station that is located out of Darwin, Australia, which is very close to the equator. I will show you on a map exactly where that is at. And then there's another pressure station out of Tahiti, which is in the central and eastern Pacific, roughly near the dateline and just to the east of it. All right, and so I'm going to try to be as detailed as I can on this because that's what I'm here for, because some of you probably don't understand what this all means. So essentially, when the Southern Oscillation Index, the SOI, is negative, which we see here, all right, our latest contribution is negative 2408. That's not a pressure reading, by the way. It's just an index, right? So right now, negative 24. Let's just say that into simple words. All right, when we look at the pressure indexes here, we can see there has been a strong correlation. The pressure over Darwin has been higher than average, and over Tahiti, the pressure has been lower than average. We can see there, physically, it is lower. Okay, that is nearly a millibar difference. Now, that might not seem like a whole lot, right? You might think to yourself that, oh, that means there's westerly winds. Well, a millibar in that large distance is probably not going to get your west winds anomalies at all, but what it's going to do is it's going to relax and slacken the trade winds. And at times, in isolated locations across the equator, we might see westerly wind bursts or these reversal in the winds themselves. So when we see this pattern here, this really sticks out. I mean, gosh, a few days ago, it was negative 26, almost negative 30, with an entire 1.5 millibar difference in air pressure between Indonesia and Australia into the Pacific Ocean. All right, and this has allowed something truly remarkable to happen. And we'll get back to the Southern Oscillation Index and what that looks like on an actual map here in just a second. But look at the equatorial anomaly sea surface temperatures below the surface. Look at that warm water. Yes, we're seeing a lot of reds and oranges out there than what we saw in mid-February, because when these trade winds relax and they reverse, it allows this warm water here, and that's going to go, and we're going to look at the second picture here, is these are actual sea surface temperatures, by the way. And so we can see what happens is when those trade winds slacken, look at this warm water, look what it's doing. All right, it is actually sloshing. So if you think about it, you have a fish tank, you put very hot, almost boiling water on the top of the tank, right? You'll notice that water is going to, the warm water stays to the top and the cold water stays below, because cold water is more denser than warm water. Just like air fluid dynamics, hot air rises, cold air sinks. Same thing applies to fluid in the water dynamics, is when we have the slackening trade winds here, this warm water is lighter and it's gonna slosh towards the east here, and that is why our El Nino, our Christ child, is beginning to kind of make itself known. So now, a way to look at this in simple terms is, well, when you get very warm waters in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean, right? Well, what does that do, right? That lowers the surface pressures, right? Low pressure likes warmer, moist air, right? Because that the air is lighter, it's gonna rise because, well, the air is warmer than it should be, so it's going to be forced to rise. Now, where is Darwin, Australia on this? You know what? Actually, let me bring up Google Maps, because that is actually going to be a lot more better to visualize and understand with what this all means really quickly. So right here, okay, is Darwin, Australia. I'm going to click it so you guys can all see that. Darwin, Australia is there. That's where the pressure is taken. And when we zoom out and we go over to Tahiti, which is over here, there is Tahiti. I can click on it. No, it's not going to allow me. But you can kind of get an idea. It's small. I know it's hard to see, but that is Tahiti. And the pressure is measured there, and it is measured here. So when you got lower pressure over here, that's negative, right? I'm going to put a minus sign for easier reference. And then when the pressure is higher over here in Australia, it's positive, right? And so that leads overall to a negative Southern Oscillation Index. So essentially the pressure is lower over here than it is over Australia, which again, this graphic here really illustrates with what we are talking about. And right now, it is definitely negative right now. Negative 2.5 to negative 3 on the 30-day average, and still slightly positive, but not enough for La Nina in the 90-day average. So the thing with this is the latest European model and the GFS are both indicating that the pressures over here in the central and eastern Pacific will be way below average through the next 5 to 10 days. So this is going to lead to a lot of warming, that warming, sloshing water to slosh eastward with time. And that's what is all indicated here on the numerical guidance. There is no indication to me that the pattern is changing with stronger than normal trade winds. Maybe very far out, but that's likely to change. So now let me open this in a new tab so I can show you this. This is another way we can visualize this. Wind anomalies at 850 millibars. So to put this in simple terms, because this video is almost 20 minutes long, Orange and red colors are weaker trade winds. Bluer colors are stronger than normal trade winds, and sometimes the winds reverse under these red colors. So we can see this black line right here that I'm drawing out is current forecast. So that is what we're observing right now. Going ahead into the future is looking down. So we can see here, and here's a Mercator projection map here showing the equator down here circled in black. So hopefully you all are following me alongside very well. So the blue colors, stronger trade winds over Indonesia. Well, that means what? Higher pressure. You get it? Okay. And lower pressure over here where all these yellow and orange colors are. And then eventually maybe the trade winds might strengthen a little bit because the MJO is not favorable for weaker trade winds. And you can kind of see how this oscillates. A lot of this weakening trade winds overall are in progress. Then we get another amplification with the trade winds in blue. So this kind of cycles every 30 to 90 days. And that's why we got to watch this, how this all progresses. Does El Nino really have an influence on the MJO? Does it have an influence on other things, you know? Okay, so let's take a look at our latest CFS model here. Things have downtrended quite markedly in the last 8 days, and that's why what you just saw last week doesn't always apply. So this is the latest look at the CFS V2 forecast on the sea surface temperatures in the Nino 3.4 region, which is what we look at the most for El Nino conditions. Right now, it is still looking like we're going to have a strong to maybe a very strong El Nino event, with some of the members here still up there in the 2.4 region. Okay, in Celsius in the 3-month mean average, which would likely outline a very strong, maybe a super El Nino in that period. Now, this could fluctuate. We have seen somewhat of a downtrend over the last week. We'll see if the climate or if the seasonal predictability barrier or the spring predictability barrier may be influencing this forecast a lot. And maybe it ends up being that it only gets maybe this warm, but still 1 Celsius would be a moderate to perhaps almost a strong El Nino event, which more than likely we're going to head into. There's no question about it at all. Well, that's going to summarize for your very latest detailed Monday outlook on the latest El Nino right now that is currently in progress. We're starting to see things develop every single Monday, folks. I will have updates on the latest El Nino conditions once PowerPoints get released here. The next update is scheduled for May 1st. So make sure you mark your calendar for the very latest on my channel as far as El Nino goes or any ENSO conditions that we have. Make sure you subscribe for more updates on this. Leave a like and also leave a comment in the section below. And also, I want to give a pretty quick shout out to Direct Weather. I have something cool coming to the YouTube channel, hopefully in my next couple of videos. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, thank you all for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. And I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another update on your local weather forecast.